We're here for day 6 of the 75th Rolex Sydney to Hobart, and it's been a busy and exciting week. Not a classic Sydney to Hobart in terms of dramatic weather conditions, but certainly just as demanding tactically. Crosbie, can you tell us, in your opinion, what have been the most interesting aspects of this year's race?
Yes, it's a good question, Wendi. I mean, it has been something really quite different, none of the subtly bash that we very often associate with this. And as you said, tactically quite demanding, mostly downwind, but a couple of really seriously large troughs. That means light wind, very light wind that you've got to get your way through. And those are really the decision makers in these races. You know, you've just got to be coming out of those, getting yourself in the best position to come out quickly, be on the right side of the track when you do that, trying to cover the other boats along the way down. So that's really made it a really interesting race there. I think extraordinarily, given the difference in designs and ages, to have 5 Supermaxis in the river at the same time, admittedly a little split apart, was quite incredible. We followed, as you saw, pretty exciting following Comanche coming up the river in quite a bit of breeze, and then, fantastic, you just love it. The Derwent switches it on. They just came to a crashing standstill about 4 miles from the end. No wind whatsoever, nothing looking up the river, and we turned around and it was info track down the end of the river, and I was beginning to think, game on, this is really good. Anyway, the wind came back, Comanche got up, and she got a well-deserved win as well, and wow, what a result for info track. Speak to Christian Beck, the owner of that. He still describes his boat as a dog. He just says it's the best sailed dog around, and even if you ask some of his leading players like Tony Mutter, yes, that boat's got a few issues, but boy, what an extraordinary performance really to get the boat. That this wasn't really the ideal conditions for it, and then to get a second there that close was fantastic. A couple of other highlights for me, the veterans, you know, the old regulars like Love and War, just such beautiful boats. Lovely to see them back on the track, and also a couple of restorations, really magnificent. Catwincher, a 1904 boat, the Bill Barry Cotter, the very well-known Maritimo guru, who pulled that boat together, just looks magnificent, and she arrived in yesterday evening. And the beautiful Windrose as well, again restored from what was almost a wreck, and down here, and she's coming in a few moments, actually one of the tail enders.
And what has caught your eye in terms of the divisional winners, and particularly Ichiban taking home for the second time the overall win?
Yes, indeed, the tassels for Ichiban, they held that one out for announcing it for a while, but it was pretty obvious. Wow, those guys are serious. You've seen from some of our interviews, and you'll see the wind's still blowing fairly hard here as well. They'll be bringing the latecomers home. You saw from some of our interviews just how detailed, almost obsessive the analysis has to be. For a race like this one particularly, you're just trying to remove everything that isn't about luck, because the luck will play, but the smaller that quotient is of the whole, the more chance you have of coming out right. And every decision they're making, you hear Will Oxley talking about his decisions about exactly when to jibe, looking up at skies, and these guys are amazing. He had no SATCOM communication for several hours in the critical phase of that lightweight patch there, and still he could bring back memories and all the recollections and the database he had available to work out where they wanted to be. So they were really none the poorer for that extraordinary loss of SATCOM there as well. So Ichiban, a big one. Delighted to see Catwincher get a win. She didn't quite get the Grand Veterans there, but she did really well to see a win for them. And also for mine, a little bit of a soft spot. I was really pleased to see Tim Gadsby's File Pro get a win in the Veterans. The boat looks magnificent. She was the old Cuckoo's Nest. She was Rapscallion Sintegra, indeed the boat that I came down to Hobart on in that really big year in '98. Lovely to see that boat looking really good shape and winning their Veterans division. Fantastic.
And what have your highlights been?
What have my highlights been? Look, it's always a highlight shooting from a chopper. It's just amazing. It's such a buzz, pardon the pun. That's been fantastic. Look, I think it's really interesting. This is the year of the drone. This is the first time we've had drones down here. We've been flying one. Colleagues of ours have been flying one. The officials have been flying one. What's really good about that is it just adds another layer of coverage, and particularly for the guys who don't get much coverage. It's been really nice to see the drones flying in the river. We don't normally get to see the other finishers, so that's really good. I've really loved that. And then all the stuff. The Tassies love this race. They are so good. They're complete enthusiasts. They'll come out any hour of the day, any day of the week to see these boats come in. I love the atmosphere here. There's very few places around the world the public can get this close to a boat or even walk on a Supermaxi like they did on Scallywag. And then, the media office. It's always good doing this with colleagues. And for you, what's the highlights?
Ooh, Ooh, I have a few. I think the first one for me is definitely the race start. It's always so exciting being in Sydney. We were out on the water at the Seawood Mark and watching the first fleet come through, hit the mark and out the heads, and it's always so exciting to be so close to such enormous supermaxis. Second for me, I think you mentioned earlier, the finish following Comanche across the finishing line, particularly when they came to that standstill with little to no wind, and you could see InfoTrack heading towards the Iron Pot. It was quite exciting, but as you mentioned, they picked up speed and came home with a convincing win. And I think for me, the final highlight has to be being here in Hobart. It's so exciting. There's so much going on. You've got the race village that has activities for the kids. You've got live music, the big screen that gives constant updates. And being out here on the docks, talking to spectators, there's people that come from all over Australia to watch this race, whether they're friends and family or just people who love being here in Hobart at this time of the year. And can we expect any changes next year?
Can we expect changes next year? Yeah, look, a few sad changes, I have to say. Great shame that we're probably not going to be seeing Blackjack again. The Reichel Pugh, owned by Peter Harburg. She's really mixed it up with these guys. Never got a line honours winner, but boy, has she pushed them hard. She's off to the Med. That's a shame. I believe Comanche's been sold to a Russian. I think she's going to be in the Med. So we may have fewer Supermaxis here next year. That's possible. But hell, I mean, you know, it's a great race even without those guys. And there are a couple of other changes. One really important one. There's going to be a division for two-handed racing next year. So short-handed racing is becoming really popular in Europe. The Fastnet race now has a short-handed division. So that's two people racing all the way to Hobart in a boat that's probably 36 foot long. Pretty rugged, I have to say, but it's a very, very much a growing area of the sport. Care of the French who love it. Absolutely love it, needless to say. So those are a couple of the key changes, I think, in particular.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our coverage this year. Please follow and like us on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. We'll be back here next year. It's been a great year for us in terms of Australian sailing coverage. And we'll be back in Hobart next year for the 76th Rolex Sydney to Hobart yacht race. Thanks for joining us.
See you then.